Lisa from the Wishing Acre again. We're inside the kitchen, and today we're going to be showing you how to make fermented bread. Kind of a companion series. I think I'm going to start here with how to make fermented foods, because we already did one on how to make homemade yogurt, and we found out that wasn't too hard. So today I'm going to show you how to make fermented bread. So first we have to show you how to make a mother. No, we all have a mother, but I have to show you how to make a mother, because your mother is what is going to continue to feed your dough every time. So we're going to keep feeding our mother. It's always good to feed your mother. So we begin with 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. I believe that using organic flour is always best, and if you can't use organic, at least non-GMO. Just like our bodies are only as good as the food that we put into it, the bread that we're going to be making, the fermented bread, is only going to be as good for us as the wonderful flours that we use that become the living bread for us. So that being said, I use organic or non-GMO at least. And then, so we need 1 1/4 cups. What you're going to do to make the mother is take 1 cup of your flour, and you're going to put that in a smaller bowl. I would originally start it in a smaller bowl. Now that I keep adding to my mother starter, I'm got a bigger bowl, but you can start with just a smaller bowl. And you take 1 cup of that and 3/4 cup room temperature water. Again, you want good water. If you have any type of city water, it might have chlorine in it, and that will not be good for the little biome that we're trying to grow, in the bacteria and the good enzymes we're trying to grow in our bread. So make sure that you have some type of filtered water if you do live in the city, and you want it room temperature. And we want 3/4 cup. So we're going to put the 3/4 cup and the 1 cup of flour, and then we're going to need a small little bit of dry yeast, which is what is in here, 1/4 cup of dry yeast. And we're going to put that all together, and we're going to stir it up, and then we're going to just leave it sit on our counter. And we're going to leave it there for about 4 hours. And after 4 hours, we're going to bring that bowl over again, and I always like to use a non-metal spatula, wooden spoon, something like that. I read somewhere, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but that the metal, if we use metal, that it can react with some of the enzymes that we're trying to grow. So that being said, I always use something non-metal. So we're going to stir that again, and then we're going to add a remaining 1/4 cup of flour into our mother starter. And then we're going to stir and cover it lightly with a plastic wrap and put it in our refrigerator overnight. At that point, our mother will have been started, and that will be our starter that we're going to have here. So since I do this all the time, I already have that here. So this is how I'm going to show you how we start now making bread with our mother. So, and you want to make sure that you're using your mother, because if you leave the mother in the starter in the refrigerator for too long, the starter might die. And so we always want to keep it active. So I usually use mine about once a week. So I'm always kind of feeding, but there's some places that do it every day. So you're going to take the plastic wrap off, and we're going to use this again, so we don't need to get a new sheet. But so this is what it looks like when it comes out of the refrigerator. You can see it's slightly kind of bubbly, and that means it's active. She's active in there. The enzymes are alive, and they're good. And sometimes it will actually get a little gray color sometimes, and that's okay. It doesn't mean anything. It's just what happens sometimes if air gets to it a little bit. So make sure you get your seal on good. And so we're just going to now add, not this yeast, so we're going to take the water and another 3/4 cup water. So this is how we feed our mother. We give it 3/4 cup water, again, non-chlorinated, room temperature, and then I have a whole 1 1/4 cups, 1 cup and 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. And we're just going to put that in here right now and stir it in. So this is the process. First we have to feed the starter, or the mother as it's called. Okay. And just basically gonna fold it in there. And the process of making this is just a long process, and the reason why it's so much better for us is because it takes so long. The more that we break down the phytic acid, which is produced inside wheat when it's being broken down, that inhibits enzymes in our gut lining for digesting wheat. So the longer that we let this ferment, the more that the phytic acid will be broken down. It is estimated that 90% of the phytates that are produced by the breakdown of the wheat as it sits will be gone. 90% of them will be broken down and distributed by fermenting. So that is great news for us, because it means that we will be able to digest our bread without any problem. And there are a lot of people who notice that, oh, I went overseas and I didn't have a problem digesting the bread there. I didn't get bloating or anything like that, and my stomach didn't hurt. And then they come back to America and their stomach hurts again, and they wonder why. Well, it's because most European breads are fermented, or sourdoughs, and they're made with these starters. And it takes a long process. It'll be 2 days. It'll be today and tomorrow will be process of filming this for you. But you know, it's worth it because it helps our gut and our digestion, so that we don't have so much discomfort. All right, so here it's all stirred in, and we're just gonna let it now sit on our counter. We're gonna cover it. Lucy, back up again. And so there, we've just fed our starter, and we're just gonna loosely cover this, and we're gonna leave it set on our counter. So that's the way people ask me, how do you get everything done? How do you do this with all these kids and all the stuff that you do? How can you make your own bread? The way that we do it is we just let it sit on the counter, and it does all the work, and we just keep adding to it or dividing it, or it really does the work itself. So it's not too hard. So we're just gonna leave this now. You can leave it between 4 and 8 hours. And we're gonna come back after that time, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like. And then we're gonna keep working with it. But so for now, we've added what we need to, and then we're leaving it set on our counter between 4 to 8 hours. And I'm gonna show you, we're gonna come back after that time's up, and we're gonna show you what that looks like. All right, so we're back now, and we have let our starter on the counter for 45 hours. And I did want to say something about a little thing that we caught when we were making the first little part, and that's we only want a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, of dry yeast, not a 1/4 cup. If you do a 1/4 cup, you might have Mount Montezuma on your hands. So only a 1/4 teaspoon. And I'll write that somewhere on there too, so you can be aware that, yeah, not a 1/4 cup, 1/4 teaspoon of the yeast in the beginning. So anyways, to keep going here, we have this now, and if you can see, it has started to work. It's got a little bit of foam, it's got bubbles, it's showing that it has enzyme action happening. That's exactly where we want it to be when we're working with it. We're gonna put it to the side right now, because first we have to get our bread recipe going. We're gonna be using the sponge or starter in a couple minutes. But for right now, we wanna take 1 1/4 or 2 cups, sorry, of all-purpose flour. This is 1 3/4. 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and we're gonna put that in our mixer with our hook attachment. So we're just gonna put that in there. So that's 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Sorry to confuse you. I'm gonna just put that in the mixer. Then we're going to take, again, at room temperature, so neither hot nor cold, we want 1 1/4 cup water, again, non-chlorinated. So we're gonna just start our mixer, and what we're going to do is just get it going real slow. I'm gonna pour about half of it in, and then I'm gonna add my 1 3/4 cup spread flour. now I'm gonna, a lot of flour. Okay, so now very slowly we're gonna add our water. Continue to add our water. We want to add it slowly so that it doesn't just kind of clump up. And once we get this all added in, we're just going to let it mix for just a couple more seconds, and then we're going to shut it off and let it rest for 10 minutes. Okay, so now we're just going to let it go for just about 20 more seconds, and then we're going to shut it off, we'll let it rest, and then we'll come back. Okay, so we want it right about there, and now I'm going to shut it off. We're going to take a little piece of saran wrap or plastic wrap that I've actually pre-sprayed already with some of my cooking spray, and we're just going to put it over around the top of this mixer like this, and we're just going to let it sit. What it's going to do is going to let the flour absorb all the water in here so that it's easier to mix later. So, all right, so we're just gonna leave it now for 10 minutes and then we'll come back. Okay, so our 10 minutes are up and now we're gonna finish making our bread recipe. So we're gonna take the cover off of our dough. And then, now the next part we're gonna add is the sponge. We need 12 ounces of sponge to go into the mixer. So, I've already, for time's sake, poured it in there, but it will just pour. It's very liquidy now. It will just pour into there, just like as if you were pouring milk or buttermilk or something. And then you just you have to kind of slice it off with something, you know, relatively straight edge there. So since we've already fed the mother or the starter before, we can just cover this up, seal it nice and tight, and put it somewhere in the refrigerator where it's not going to freeze until we need it again. All right, so we're just gonna push that off to the side. And now the starter that we put in here, 12 ounces again, is going to go into our mixer bowl. And we're just gonna slowly add that starter in there. Maybe you can see better if I do it like this. Kind of see the consistency of it now that I'm pouring it. Now I'm just going to stop it for a second because I'm not getting this all the way out very easily. Okay, and then we're going to take a 1/4 cup honey, which I've already pre-measured, into a little bowl so that you can see it better. And we're just going to scrape that into there. And 2 teaspoons of salt. And we're going to mix that up. Don't be afraid to let it mix for a while because you want to get everything going. There we go. I think I'm going to just scrape down the sides a little bit. And I'm just going to let this mix for a couple minutes. And if it starts getting a little dry, I'm just going to add a little bit of water. Again, room temperature. So here we go. Okay, so this has been about maybe 5 to 7 minutes of mixing. And I'm going to pull this down. I stopped my mixer and I'm going to pull this down off the hook beater, or the attachment. And as you can see how it's still kind of sticky like that? We don't want it like that. So I'm actually at this point going to add just a little bit of flour, maybe like a tablespoon. If it's too dry, you add a little bit of water. Too wet, you add a little bit of flour. So I'm going to mix it again for a couple more minutes and I'll show you, and we'll see if I can get it to where it's supposed to be. All right, so I've done that 3 times now. I've stopped it, pulled it off the attachment, added a little bit of flour 3 different times. So I've had to add about 3 tablespoons of extra all-purpose flour. So I think it's pretty good now. So if you can kind of, I'll take it off the attachment. It's somewhat sticky yet, but still you're still able to kind of hold it. And I'm going to work with it just a minute. So sorry about that. So you can see it's somewhat sticky, but it's kind of where I want it to be. I can stick my finger in it without it pulling off. You can put your finger imprint in there, but it springs back. It's kind of where we want it to be right now. If you wanted to add raisins or your pecans, you would do that right now. You would have done that before you pulled off your attachment, and just let it roll in there and until your raisins are in there nice. I have made it that way before and it's really good. So now we're going to take I already prepared another bowl that's slightly oiled, and we're just going to take this out now. Use my spatula, sorry, I can't see very good. We're going to just take this out and put it in our not coming out. She doesn't want to come out. Okay. All right. So it came out of the bowl pretty cleanly. That's how you kind of know that you had it at the right spot, because most of the dough comes out with it. Okay, so we're going to just take it and put the dough just a couple times, spin it around so it gets a little bit of oil on the outside of it. And then we're going to kind of tuck it in there. We're going to take our piece of plastic wrap and we're going to put that over the top loosely again, like we did before, and then we're going to let it rest again for around, well, this time it's not going to go 4 hours. You're going to let it rest around 2 to 3 hours, just long enough so that we can have it rise a little, and then we're going to shape it into our bread loaves. So we'll come back when that's done. All right, so we've had our dough rising on the counter for about 3.5 hours, and you can tell by the way that I touch it that it's ready. It's not sticky anymore, and it bounces back. So this dough is ready to go. So we're just going to take off the cover. We're going to again reuse this. So we're just going to set that off to the side because we're going to need it again when we put them in the refrigerator. All right, so we're first going to divide our dough in half. Just kind of take this little thing and just kind of give me a little bit of eyeball where I can divide it. And if you want, I do have flour here, so I'm going to go ahead and flour my hands. Just tear it in half. And if you need to use more flour, you can. Ah, come on. Okay, so I'm going to show you what you can do with two different ways how you can shape these loaves. So the first way is I'm just going to make a loaf that I'm going to put on my stoneware pan here. And you're just basically turning it into itself. You kind of see how that is on the bottom. And you can flavor it all different ways. You know, I told you about the raisins and pecans, but I tried it one time with cinnamon sugar and tried to make raisin bread. So you can do whatever you want to flavor it. Or you can just make it plain. But you're basically just going to tuck, 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 tuck. I don't know if you can tell what I'm doing, but I'm just tucking and rolling. And you want to make it kind of tight because it's going to sit now overnight and then in the morning. But you can see now it's got a nice elastic feel to it. It's not sticky anymore. That means everything we were wanting it to do with the enzymes, it did. And we're just going to shape it now. It is a nice little tight ball. And I have this pan prepared with cornmeal, a little bit of oil, and then cornmeal on the top. And we're just going to leave it sit like this now. So we're going to cover it. And that's all we need to do with it tonight. It's going to go into the refrigerator until tomorrow morning, and then I'm going to show you what else we're going to do with it. This is just what we have to do. It's late here now. Everyone's tired, and it's been all day that this little dough has been rising here, so doing its work. But now we have to tuck it into bed. So we're going to divide this again in half. Might need a little bit more flour. And if you want to get technical, you can always get a scale and, you know, do all that kind of stuff, but it's just for us, so. Maybe if I go to the market with it, because I sell at the farmer's market, and maybe if I do that, I'll maybe have to weigh it so I get them pretty even. Sometimes I don't get them so even. I'm just going to keep tucking. And we're going to shape these little loaves and put them in these little pans that are prepared again with a little bit of butter and some cornmeal, just so they don't stick. And these little guys are going to do the rising all night long. I'm just going to tuck them in there. Tuck, tuck, tuck. All right. Then do the next one. So we're just gonna put these guys in the refrigerator, and then in the morning we're gonna get them out. We're gonna let them rise some more. You got to remember that this is what makes it so that all that phytic acid is no longer in that wheat anymore, and you can digest it easier. So it's all good. So here we go. And tuck that little guy in there. All right, this has already been prepared with some oil. Again, I sprayed it, and we're just gonna lay it over the top, and I'll set it in the refrigerator, and then we'll touch you guys in the morning, and I'll show you the next step is gonna be just letting them rise one more time, and then we're gonna put them in the oven to bake. Okay, so the last time we had talked, we had put these in the refrigerator overnight. So this is now, I've taken them out of the refrigerator and just set them. I actually had them in the oven on the bread proofing setting, or you can just turn the light on and just let them for, well, this has been 3 hours now. So it's kind of the thing about natural rising fermented bread is that it's kind of dependent on the weather, whether it rises really high or not. So it's been kind of rainy here and a little cool, so it hasn't risen quite as much as it normally would, but still, as you can see, it has been rising a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and finish these off and see what we get. All right, so here's our little tiny bread loaves, and you can see this real nice. They have a nice touch to them, and they spring back, and they're ready to go. So the only thing that we're going to have to do now is, while the oven is preheating, I'm going to put this a shallow pan of water. And the reason we do this is because we want to create steam in there for our bread when it's baking. So while that's preheating, we're going to put that in there, and then I'm going to take a little bit of flour and my serrated bread knife, and I'm just going to put that on the bread knife, and then we're going to make some little slashes in the top of our bread. You actually kind of want to get in there a little bit, because it'll give a nice top to it when it comes out of the, I don't want to make it fell down. My bread knife's not too good anymore. Anyways, just want to give it a little bit of a gash without making your bread go completely flat here. And you'll see these will open up real nice once you put those in the oven. You can go a little bit on the, again, I could have made these all little loaves or made 2 big loaves. Completely up to you how you want to do that. Okay, again, the nicer the little slit you get, the better it's going to open up when you put it in the oven. Okay, so once the oven is preheated, I'm just going to set these on the top rack above where the little pan of water is, and then we're going to bake them anywhere between 15 minutes to a half an hour. Kind of depends on your oven. My oven isn't working really good lately, so I have to watch it as soon as it's past 10 minutes. I have to watch, and you want to do it at between 450 and 500 degrees. So I'm going to put those in, and we'll be back in a little bit. All right, so we've had our bread in the oven, and it baked for about 15 or 20 minutes. Then it is cooled. You let it cool for as long as you can handle it. Once you can handle it, you're going to want to take your bread loaf, and you're going to want to kind of tap it like that. I don't know if you can hear, but it has a little bit of a hollow sound, and I could do that again. And then you're going to want to take these out of there and do the same thing. And so that's why I like the free forms. As you can see, my knife is not very good, but the more that you make that slit in there, the better you're gonna have a nice little mark on the top of your bread. Didn't work really good because my bread knife's not working really good. I'm sure the sharp one's probably out in the beehive because I cut comb with that. So anyways, yeah, so a lot of people like these free form loaves. I actually prefer having them in these nice little shapes just because I think they make it nicer for slicing, and if you want to toast it, you can toast them either one, but they make a nice little sandwich bread. So here we go. We're going to cut into one. This always makes a nice little crust on the outside. You can hear it's nice, and I like that on my bread. I don't like to have a soft-sided loaf. And then as you can see, I made a nice, delicious bread inside. So you can toast it. It makes wonderful toast, especially if you would, add raisins or anything like that and make it sweet. It's just a really great little bread to have around, and it's good for you. It makes it so that you can eat bread if you've been having problems. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If there's any other questions, leave them in the comments below. And again, this is so much healthier for you. So I hope that you give it a try now that you see that it's not hard, but it takes a little bit of time. And you can just squeeze it in there, just let it rise on the counter, and then just throw it in the oven. Not too hard. So I hope that you leave me some comments and subscribe and hit that notification button for us. And until next time, be kind.